Okay. Hi, my name is Adaora Uche. I'm a GRC lead at THG. I have about 15 years experience in the tech space, and I'm not the best at introducing myself, to be candid, so you can feel free to ask me any questions about myself, but for the sake of time, I could just delve right in. But before I do that, how is everyone doing? Kicking great. I hope we're enjoying B-Sides so far. Okay, so our topic for today is virtual assistants, real threats, the cyber risk of corporate AI chatbots. Let me start by asking a question. Do we enjoy interacting with chatbots? Does anyone enjoy interacting? We don't, right? But I don't. Oh, you do. Interesting. What do you like about?
No, I don't. I wouldn't say I trust them. It's kind of incompetent.
Yeah. To be fair, they can be quite. They can save time sometimes, depending on the platform and how they've set it up. I know that, for instance, when I have to call my broadband service provider for a new contract or whatever, that particular company, their chatbot is quite efficient because they save me time and just redirect me to the right company. But other than that, sometimes they don't exactly provide the solution or the answers that we may be looking for. Anyway, welcome to today's presentation on virtual assistants. We'll be talking about the cyber risk of corporate AI chatbots. So, these chatbots are not going anywhere. Unfortunately, whether we like them or not, because AI is a new wave and is here to stay. So, it's interesting to note that 76% of enterprises now deploy corporate chatbots for customer service, for internal employee assistance, for workflow automations, knowledge management. These chatbots are helping to ease the amount of demand on human resources. And in 2023, 82%, there was an increase in the adoption of virtual chatbots by 82% among corporate organizations. So, what makes them particularly powerful is their access to vast amounts of corporate data, as well as their integration into multiple back-end systems. However, with the efficiencies that they also provide, they also pose surprising security risk to our infrastructure and our systems. And we'll be taking a look at how this happens and some real-life scenarios that have happened. So, basically, once you have access and integration into the system, there is vulnerability. And when we look at business requirements for today, what every business owner in the respective division is looking to achieve is, have data access across systems, more personalized customer services, fine-tuning these chatbots in such a way that they understand and can interpret and communicate in a way that we can understand as human. That's the natural language processing. 247 automated operations as well. The other day, I was gonna purchase something from Curry's, and I made a mistake in my purchase, and it was late at night. So I thought I had to wait till the next morning to ring the customer service. Fortunately, there was a chatbot. There was a VA available to, assist me. So 247 automated operations, because that's the world we live in now. Everyone wants, instant service. No one wants to wait. So, it has its advantages, but on the back end of this, right, are the security implications. So when we have more access to data across systems, what happens is that attackers have an expanded attack surface. So they have more area coverage to try to exploit. When we're talking about personalized customer services, it means that these chatbots will have access to personal information, both sensitive, including sensitive personal information. So there are risks in handling these personal information. And for natural language processing, getting the AI to relate, communicate, understand the nuances of human communication, the major vulnerability there is prompt injection. So people or nefarious individuals can inject malicious prompts into the chatbot system. And for 24/7 automated operations, of course, that means that we have less human interaction, less human oversight of what is actually going on there. Now we're going to look at how this has led to real world exploits. And the most popular one is Air Canada in 2023. Okay? So it was a high profile case that received international attention. The chatbots confidently informed customers that they were due entitlement to bereavement fair refunds for their loved ones that may have died as a result of maybe a plane crash or something like that. And it even went ahead to cite non-existent policies from Air Canada's website. And that's one thing about AI. AI is prone to hallucination and, hallucination where it just brings up something that doesn't exist and presents it in a way that it looks really real. And that was what happened with the Air Canada case. So they tried to refute it, led to a court action when they refused to pay out the people that sought, sought to, get that refund from them. They tried to refute it, it led to a court case action, and the court insisted that Air Canada will be responsible for that because they are responsible for anything, including what any information, including AI systems, disseminates to the public as well. So this led to a heavy fine for Air Canada. The second case is a financial services chatbot. There was a breach in this one because the attacker used prompt injection, what I talked about briefly earlier on, used prompt injection techniques to gradually manipulate the conversation boundaries of the chatbots. So by incrementally pushing these boundaries, they eventually coerced the system into revealing personal information and transaction details for customers. Of course, this led to a fine for the company because customer data was leaked. And the sad thing about this was this wasn't discovered until after 3 weeks. So the impact was $3.7 million in remediation costs and regulatory fines for the company. So, if they could have, for instance, had prompt validation techniques in place and monitored what their AI chatbots were returning, the information it was giving out, these could have been avoided. We'll talk about, security techniques that can be put in place to further, boost the security posture of such AI systems. My next case is a social engineering enhancement. So here, attackers weaponized the chatbots through social engineering. What they did was to include phishing links that redirected customers to a fake website, and it led to stealing of personal information, identity theft issues, payment card details being stolen by those people. So this resulted in credential theft, like I said. So there was customer credential harvesting, denial of service as well within the company. So those are some examples of how, AI chatbots, when not properly or securely managed, have led to, major security incidents and data breaches within organizations. So it's important that we are conversant with how, with the attack vectors that hackers use to access our AI systems when it comes to chatbots. One of the things I've talked about is prompt injection, where they manipulate the system's behavior through carefully crafted inputs. Then there is training data poisoning, so corrupting the knowledge base or response pattern. So what they do in this particular one is to try to, when they access the back end, they are able to, put layers of false information that the AI picks from when it's searching its sources. Then there's model extraction. Stealing proprietary models through systematic querying. There's boundary testing. When you gradually push the conversations you have with the AI chatbots beyond its, defined boundaries, just to be able to get it to reveal restricted information. Then there's hallucination, exploitation. That's what I talked about earlier when I said sometimes AI can present false data that doesn't exist and present it quite confidently and make it look real. So, AI's tendency to fabricate confident-sounding responses. So now that we are familiar with, some of the attack vectors, we've seen real-life cases where AI chatbot systems have been exploited, let's talk about technical defense strategies that can be implemented within our organizations to, I won't say eliminate, but to minimize the risks that these chatbot systems are exposed to. So the first thing is input validation. So it's important that we have systems in place to validate whatever outputs that AI is given. It's important that we also define the sources that AI systems can pick from so that it's in a controlled place and, so that it's in a controlled place as well, and ensure that whatever is going out is sanitized as well. It has to be within defined boundaries. Then there's conversation monitoring, where we have real-time analysis of interaction, to understand the patterns, to understand what kind of conversations are the AI systems actually receiving. That way, if we are monitoring that, we'll be able to identify patterns that indicate attacks, for instance. Then, of course, access control. This is something that is being talked about everywhere, implementing the principle of least privilege for system connections. In other words, if implementing access controls such that the AI systems can only access not the entire enterprise, not the entire ERP system, but only specific and defined systems that relate to its functions or operations. Then response validation, where we have secondary review of generated content before it delivers. Then separation execution environments. So it's advisable that we sandbox these AI chatbots in such a way that they are isolated or separate from our critical systems. So even if these attackers try to access, get to the back end. They have no way of interacting with our critical systems that hold sensitive information. Then, of course, there's a fact-checking mechanism where we're verifying against trusted knowledge sources. We must always ensure that the knowledge sources for AI are verified and are trustworthy. Everything is not just technical. Of course, we need the governance and policy strategies as well. So, how can we ensure robust governance to further manage these AI risks? We've got data minimization. So the concept of data minimization, it's all about limiting the amount of personal and the type of personal information that is being collected. So if we don't need to collect that information, we should not. It's not a question of, can we collect the information? It's, should we actually be collecting that information? And if there's no need to have that information, then we shouldn't collect that. Data minimization, such that there's less information available. You collect only what is needed per time. Regular security auditing. Of course, so we're talking about penetration testing, for instance, vulnerability assessments, and all of that. We need to ensure that we're regularly auditing, our AI systems, especially with the chatbots as well. Incident response planning. Incident response planning goes hand in hand with monitoring as well. So we need to have specialized procedures in place for AI systems to be monitored. Was it Air Canada? I don't think it was Air Canada. It was the other financial data breach. It took them about 3 weeks to identify the data breach that happened. If they had effective monitoring systems in place, detection systems in place, specifically for that AI system, they may have discovered it earlier on. With an incident response plan, they would have had the right measures and mechanisms in place to contain that and, treat and minimize that particular incident. So it's important to have the right incident response planning specific to our AI systems, including chatbots. Clear data handling policies. So, this has to do with having clear rules for data or information access, information management, and of course the principle of least privilege also comes in here, such that only those that actually need access to that data can access it. It's also important that we understand the kind of data that we have, fully categorized and labeled, sensitive information, personal information. That way we'll be able to implement the right information handling strategies to further secure our information assets. Then third-party risk management. For third-party risk management, it's important that if you've got a vendor, for instance, supplying your AI solution or your chatbot solution, it's important to take them through a security assessment before you onboard them. What happens a lot of times in a lot of places is that the rave for AI gets everyone so excited, wanting to deploy AI because it's the next big solution without fully understanding the risk that it poses. But going through appropriate, security assessments for third-party vendors is a good way to, minimize some of the risks that may come with this. So do we understand the API integrations that this vendor is going to introduce to our systems by connecting to our systems? Do we understand what security engineering measures are needed to further boost our security posture and have the right security techniques in place? Do we understand all of that? It's only when we go through these assessments do we understand the data protection implications of the data that we will be sharing with these third-party vendor. Do we understand all of these things? If it's or even the financial information as well. So appropriate vendor security assessments are important, as well as regular security auditing for these vendors as well. It's not just it's not a checkbox we take, it's something that we need to keep reviewing, especially when we identify that that particular vendor is a critical vendor. And of course, legal review. So I like to believe that after we have such assessments, it's important that we have in the contracts, specific terms and conditions that encompass the necessary security measures that need to be in place for that vendor, for instance, are covered within the contracts. Legal review, it also entails that we have the right policy coverage for such systems, and we ensure that it's disseminated to all employees, stakeholders that interact with the system. So, having said that, how can we build secure AI assistants? I've said some of these things before. We've got assessments, a practical roadmap to secure our chatbots. It always starts with assessments, okay? Understanding what we have on the ground, as well as identifying the vulnerabilities so that we can, in cases where we can patch, we patch, or we can, upgrade our security posture to, block such vulnerabilities. It's important to implement input validation and access restrictions as well. We have also talked about that before. And I talked about monitoring, where we deploy AI-specific security monitoring, because the truth is what works for your other solutions may not work for AI. So we need to understand the AI solution end to end, so that we can ensure that whatever monitoring we are doing is specific to that. Training and awareness, very, very important, because with the rate at which AI is being onboarded, the commensurate training and awareness needed to inform users of these AI systems are not a par. So we need to enforce more AI-specific training programs for all stakeholders, as well as ensure that we are educating them, the users, the developers, the security teams, so we are more conversant with the unique risk that it poses. Governance. Establishing clear policies for AI system and management. So what are your policies like? I know that a lot of organizations here probably have their information security policies, but are we creating the policies for our AI systems as well? And are we enforcing those policies as well? So those are some of the things that we need to begin to implement as well. Then verification. It's important that we fact check everything that our AI systems are sending out to our customers. Make sure that it is valid, it is true, and it is confident, and it is, So how can we balance security and functionality? The first thing is, security should be our posture by design and default. It shouldn't be an afterthought. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of companies onboard AI because it's the rave, because of all the benefits that it's got, without actually taking a step back to understand the risk that it poses. So we need to ensure that, AI security is by default, not by design. We have regular red team exercises specific to AI systems, penetration testing, for instance, as well. continuous monitoring and improvement. We need to monitor what our AI systems are doing. We need to understand what these chatbots are, how these chatbots are interacting with people, understand user engagement. We need to understand all of that and see how we can improve as well. Clear incident response procedures. We talked about that earlier on. Having the right response plan in place such that when there are attacks or there are incidents, it's easy to identify, contain, and then treat such incidents ahead of time. Cross-functional security governance, it should encompass not just your information security teams, but we should be looking at other teams as well. We're looking at the development teams, looking at governance across the legal teams. It should be a fusion of different relevant stakeholders for AI security. We need to be transparent about the capabilities of AI and limitations. And what that means is we need to make sure that our AI systems we are informing the public, the people using these chatbots, about the limitations of our AI systems, about how they're prone to mistakes, where they get their information from, inform people of any bias or discrimination that may have been, may have come up as a result of the AI's output. Okay, so, in conclusion, AI chatbots, of course, introduce unique security challenges, not something that we are quite familiar with. So we need to have specialized defense mechanisms in place for AI systems. The impacts of these breaches demonstrates, they have huge significant impacts on businesses such as Air Canada, and the financial losses are just a part of it. There's also the reputational loss as well. Effective security requires both technical and governance approaches, like we've discussed. We need to be proactive about risk management and enabling safe deployment of AI. And one way as well is to also have human oversight, the sandboxing, and then human oversight of AI's outputs. And of course, we must always remember that companies are legally accountable for their AI systems, statements, and actions. Thank you.